All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack a debate that has probably frustrated you at some point in your life. I mean, have you ever just sat there watching someone pick up a guitar, learn a new language, or master a sport, and wondered why they seem to improve so much faster than everyone else? Why do some people just seem to succeed earlier and make the absolute hardest things look so incredibly easy? Well, today, we are breaking down the nuts and bolts of skill acquisition, specifically this fascinating relationship between talent and discipline.
Because let's be real, behind every single comparison we make, there's this hidden, lingering question. Was this person born with it, or did they grind for it? And this isn't just harmless curiosity. This question completely shapes our self-belief. Think about it. If we see ability mostly as a fixed genetic trait, like something you either have or you don't, we might just throw in the towel at the first sign of struggle. But if we see it as something built systematically through effort, we approach the whole process entirely differently.
And that actually brings us to the core anchor of our whole explainer today. Talent is the starting condition, discipline is the growth engine. The absolute crucial point here is that talent and discipline are not enemies. They aren't this toxic binary where you have to pick one over the other. Instead, they just play completely different roles in the exact same system of skill growth. So to give us a quick roadmap for our 7-minute journey today, we're going to cover the hidden question, defining starting conditions, the engine of growth, the messy middle, surviving the plateau, and finally, a new way to improve. Section 1. Defining starting conditions, or the head start.
Okay, we really need to stop looking at talent as this, magical destiny and see it for what it actually is. It's simply the amount of friction a person starts with. Imagine two people climbing the exact same hill on bicycles. Talent means one bike just has smoother gears, better balance, and lighter resistance. But here's the catch, and it's a big one. The rider still absolutely has to pedal. Talent doesn't remove the climb. It just makes that first part feel a whole lot less like torture.
Let's look at exactly what those smoother gears provide early on. Talent can make early learning faster, it significantly reduces that initial struggle, and it helps a person spot patterns much sooner. But I gotta give you a warning here. Talent often creates the illusion of effortless ability. From the outside, it looks like the person isn't working hard at all, when in reality, they're just working with a highly favorable starting setup. Moving right along to Section 2, the engine of growth, sustaining the output. So if talent is that awesome head start, discipline is what actually keeps the car moving when your motivation inevitably takes a nosedive. But let's be super clear. Discipline isn't just this blurry, vague idea of trying hard. It's more like watering a plant. Just admiring a plant does nothing. Watering it for one single day also does nothing. But repeated watering creates true systemic growth. Skill is actually a physical change in your internal system, your attention, your coordination, your memory, and that change only settles in through the repeated watering of discipline. Actually, let's look at this through the lens of a river analogy. Talent is like a river's natural slope. A steep initial slope gives the water incredible early speed, right? But discipline is the carved channel. Without a channel, that fast-moving water just spreads out, loses direction, or sinks straight into the mud. A carved channel creates long-term direction and continuity. It allows the water to keep flowing even when the land flattens out. We so frequently mistake hidden supports for raw, innate giftedness. Things like early exposure, which makes patterns feel familiar way sooner. Or simply having more practice time, which creates hidden repetitions. Even having lower stress can free up your attention for learning. When someone looks naturally gifted, a lot of the time, you're just looking at a system that had fewer obstacles to growth. Which brings us to Section 3, the messy middle, where real learning happens. Look, skill growth is definitely not a straight line from bad to good. It's a messy, cyclical process. It goes exposure, then awkwardness, adjustment, repetition, and finally, a small increase in what feels possible. The beginning is fast and the end is polished, for sure. But this uneven, kind of chaotic cycle in the middle, that is where your internal machinery is actually being rebuilt. If you ever find yourself getting super frustrated while learning something new, just remember this. The messy middle is literally like remodeling a house while you are still trying to live inside it. There's dust absolutely everywhere, tools are in the kitchen sink, and it temporarily feels way worse before it gets better. But that instability isn't failure. It's active reconstruction. Discipline is simply what keeps you in the renovation long enough for the new structure to finally settle. But here's the thing. Repetition alone just isn't enough. Discipline without feedback is basically just blind persistence. Feedback is the steering wheel of skill. If you just repeat the wrong thing over and over, Well, you just become very good at being wrong. Think of it like a captain turning a massive ship. You don't turn instantly. You have to make small, constant adjustments based on feedback before a minor error becomes a permanent, bad habit. All right, Section 4, surviving the plateau, the need for new effort.
We absolutely need to reframe the dreaded learning plateau. Feeling stuck does not mean you lack talent. It usually just means you've outgrown your old methods. Think of climbing a mountain. When the trail flattens out, it might feel like you aren't making upward progress anymore. But those flat parts aren't a failure. They are exactly where you gather strength, adjust your pace, and prepare for the next steep ascent. Plateaus require a totally different, highly structured kind of effort, and honestly, this is where discipline becomes the most visible.
If you look at this breakdown, you can see this really beautiful interplay between our two variables across the 4 stages of growth. During early exposure, talent lowers confusion, while discipline creates those very first repetitions. During plateaus, talent might keep you from getting discouraged, but discipline is what actually carries you through the slowdown. So the key takeaway is this pattern. Talent primarily affects the ease of the journey, while discipline controls the continuity.
And finally, Section 5, a new way to improve, the identity shift.
It is definitely time to drop that toxic, gifted versus grinder binary once and for all. Instead, we should adopt these 4 actionable steps. First, judge your progress accurately. Second, treat your plateaus with patience instead of panic. Third, recognize hidden repetitions in others instead of just assuming it's magical talent. And fourth, choose reality-based improvement strategies. Adopting the systemic view allows us to respect natural advantages without turning them into destiny, and respect effort without demanding instant magical results. So as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with one memorable, maybe even provocative question to ask yourself the next time you tackle something new. Stop asking if you were born with it. Instead, ask yourself, what is making this task easier at the start, and what is keeping progress alive over time? Figure out the answers to those 2 questions, and I promise you, there isn't a learning plateau in the world that you can't conquer.